Hi, Paul Sakis, Good News Planet. What a lucky guy. We're going to talk peace talk. All right, Dr. Azza Karam, do I say that right?
Yes, it's okay.
It's okay. That means it's not really perfect, but it's close.
It's very close. It's Azza. It's Azza, which is very difficult for anyone who is not a native Arabic speaker to get the A. But so it's Azza Karam. It's all good.
Well, I'm Jewish, so Azza.
There you go. Well done. Well done.
Secretary General, Religions for Peace International. Everyone knows for over 20 years we've been involved with the peace movement and the International Day of Peace, and we've had concerts in Central Park and in Times Square and blah, blah, blah. And so, and I see a dove behind our doctor here, and she is a wonderful representation for doing more with the subject of peace and interreligious efforts. I'll mention my name is Paul Slakis, but I'm Reverend Paul Slakis, all faiths and spiritual. I'm a practicing Jew, but I love religion. I love human beings. I like to go from the Homo sapiens. We're all in it together. We're all brothers and sisters. So I spoke enough. You are a super duper person. Tell us a little bit about your background, and I'm so excited. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, Reverend Paul. So henceforth, I'm Azza, and I'm incredibly thrilled and honored to have the opportunity to begin the year with a conversation about good news and keeping our spirit alive and well with faith. Like you, I'm rather very passionate, actually, about everything faithful. So all religions, including indigenous spirituality, are a source of utter respect and fascination by me. I happen to believe that the creator, the maker, whatever we wish to, God, Allah, whatever we refer to this divine as, created us diverse for a very fine reason, because it keeps us systematically challenged and engaged. And there is so much joy in learning more, as well as pain in learning more about one another, and having to coexist and cohabit is our mandate on this earth, and to do this well. And that's the mission of Religions for Peace. And it's been the mission of this organization 50 years ago. Since its founding, the idea was a whole bunch of religious leaders came together with the understanding at that time, 50 years ago, 1970, that, you know something, we've got the United Nations, which was meant to secure that we would never go to war again with one another after the Second World War, that we would never again lift up any weapon of war against one another. And clearly it wasn't happening. Clearly wars are still being fought, and were still being fought 50 years ago. And in fact, at that time, it was the height of what we're actually living through right now again, which is a nuclear race, basically, a nuclear arms race. And so the concern of the religious leaders was, listen, the political establishments, our governments, are absolutely essential, but they're not enough. They have to work together. That too is essential, but it's not enough. So we have to bring along our religious institutions, our faith communities, to be part of this global effort, mission to secure a peace. And it's not just a peace which is no war. It's not just a peace which is the absence of conflict, which is almost impossible to do in our world, because to live together is also to have a conflict. But it is a peace in the sense of an enduring human dignity, which requires that we honor one another despite our diversity, precisely because of our diversity. And it requires that we honor the planet we live on and safeguard it and protect it, because otherwise there wouldn't be any point to it all. So that was the founding principle. A peace that is what we refer to as positive peace, in the same way that the Institute for Economics and Peace defines it. It's a positive peace. It is multifaceted. It is, in short, the presence of human dignity at any and all times, and at any and all circumstances. and a commitment to work together as religious leaders representing religious institutions, but also faith communities. So everything from the Vatican to the smallest indigenous community in the world.
Okay, amen. And I like to say our women. So this is NASA's photo from the moon. And they call it the blue marble. If you can, it's like, I have this background here, but this is, there's no boundaries. I'm a John Lenonist, actually. No boundaries and no borders. I think a lot of those things, actually, I think a lot of things complicate our lives and segregate our lives because of the lack of understanding that they're just a silly line that says, this is mine. And they call it a country, or this is, my color, but my skin, but, I'm really a Homo sapien brother, the same kind of insides and our religions as well. And religion, I'm an XYZ religion, you're an XY religion, but they're sort of like things that we've added on to our Homo sapienness because we were born pure and without any of these things, or maybe we learned them from our environment and our culture. So everything you have to say for me is quite important. And because we have countries, we have divided the joint, all right, we have made religions, they're there, and people hold on tight to them, and people hold on tight to those countries. And they hold on to things that are really questionably worthy of holding on to. I think that I'm concerned because too many wars have occurred because of that. Those things, they're just things. So I don't know, what do you think?
Well, first of all, that dove is a peace dove, and it's supposed to represent religions for peace, the work, the mission, and the modality of our engagement. And how is it that we work to achieve what you're concerned about, what all of us are concerned about, Paul, is we work in interreligious councils, in fora, almost 90 in different parts, actually more than 90 different countries around the world. Each of these brings together the religious leaders, the formally appointed leaders of their respective institutions and or communities. And their job is to deliberate together on what they're confronting, because what is happening at a national level is very unique. It's not every single country isn't confronting exactly the same thing in exactly the same way. And by extension, every region has its different priorities, and globally we have different priorities. So the idea is to secure a common understanding about how it is that they're each impacted, their people, their communities, their institutions, and what they can do together, what they can say together. So it's not just the Catholic leader saying this, but it's the Catholic and the Baptist and the whatever other Protestant denominations and the evangelical and the Sunnah and the Shia and the different Jews, and they're all speaking together, saying and maintaining a similar message of urgency, but also a call for what needs to be done. And very often it's a similar set of challenges that they're confronting at the national level. So when they speak powerfully, saying the same thing, there's an echo. There's an echo that makes the message that needs to be communicated, whether it's about changing behaviors or changing attitudes or ceasing from doing certain things, whatever that message is that it needs to be, whether it's about getting your vaccines and why vaccines are good for everybody, why they save lives, why they're important, why it's important to wash your hands frequently, whatever that message needs to be that needs to go viral, there's no better way to communicate than to do so via the religious or faith institutions, because their audience, that's all of us, is always going to be much more than the audience of a local TV or radio station. But they will also use the local TVs and radio stations to get their messages across. So it's their pulpits, their unparalleled outreach through the religious institutions, and truly unparalleled. There's not a mechanism we have today that has the capacity to reach the way that different religious institutions together can reach. It's
I
much.
agree. I agree. I so much agree with you that after a bunch of years at CBS and PBS, Channel 13, making TV shows, I mean, I got my 50 plus years in. I was asked, I became head of marketing for the city station, and the Chinese said, why don't you come and help us and do ethnic marketing, multicultural, niche marketing, okay? And I started back in '85, my own company, doing multicultural marketing and advertising, okay? And my line was, the reason, even though this is marketing, was that, you know, I grew up in a Jewish home, and if you want to reach my mother, you put an ad in the Jewish Week. Bottom line, that's Hadassah's newspaper.
Yes.
We helped build the temple. My father's president. The religious, now not every family though, it's so, right, that not every family grew up as, say, religious, Jewish, conservative / reform as I did, right? So there's many that just like their own countries, you know, the Italians come here, they don't want to know from Italy. You know, there's Jews that are born and grow up here in America, they don't want to know anything about Jewish. I even got, my second marriage was interfaith. And I studied interfaith because I like everybody, all right? So how do we though, I mean, there's no doubt that if we got all the religious communities to work together, we're talking about a lot of people. Bottom line, I agree with you. If you could just get all them out of the 7.8 billion, how many do you think are religious? Or how many do you think are religious? How many people live a religious life enough to listen to somebody speaking in that manner?
So in 2012, the Pew Research Center did this global survey, and they came up with a figure that we often quote a great deal, which is that 84% of the world's people will claim an affiliation to a particular religion, right? Wow. So that's roughly 8 out of 10 people. I think that's a lot of people that will claim an affiliation with a religion. That invariably means either a religious institution or a faith community of some sort, or, and this is something that we underestimate, even if, like you were saying, in the case of your mother, not everybody goes to or reads that particular newspaper. Maybe not everybody goes to the synagogue or to the mosque or to the church, but you know what? They probably go to similar shops where they will get certain products that they need. They will go to certain hospitals and certain schools, which are run by religious institutions. And we, in my previous life in the UN, when I worked on religion and with religious actors, it was very clear to us that primary healthcare everywhere in the world, basic primary healthcare everywhere in the world, almost 30% of that is made available through religious institutions, right? So even in the United States, The Economist also in 2012 came up with an estimate that's over 70% of hospitals in the United States of America were run by or through the Catholic establishments. That's a pretty impressive set, right?
Yeah,
so
by far.
Even if it's not reading the same newspaper, Paul, even if it's not going to the same religious institution, the reach of these religious institutions is actually quite massive, more so than our traditional business or corporate sector, more so than our usual governments. In fact, in most of the world, the religious institutions have been the original providers of basic services, education, health, nutrition, sanitation, the original providers of what today we call social services or development have been religious institutions, and they never went away. And so today when a disaster strikes in most parts of the world, you'll see it made a big difference to be able to access the local churches or synagogues or mosques as spaces for people to go get their testing and now get their vaccines. It fundamentally expanded the range of reach.
I agree.
Right? So this is massive. This is a huge constituency. And it's not the specific religious leader who's in question. It is an infrastructure of institutions that includes everything from hospitals to schools to public service utilities. It includes shops, everything. So it's a massive infrastructure of community. You don't have to be religious to be a recipient of that reach and to be in that space. You can be totally, secular, but you're still frequenting those same spaces for different reasons in our life. So it is a remarkable outreach. And that is why getting the religious leaders together to speak powerfully, to echo, to create a resonance around the main messages that we need people to know is very, very important. It is by no means enough, though, Paul. It's not enough. So until today, we have encountered situations where 100 religious leaders from representing every single faith tradition known to humankind will issue a statement that says, here's what you need to do, here's what we're worried about, here's what we're calling on governments and the private sector and each other to do, and da-da-da-da. And you don't hear about it. You don't hear about it at all. Until a week later, His Holiness Pope Francis says exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. And then it goes viral. The Pope said, today, the Pope issued a statement or whatever and said, today in his homily on Sunday, the Pope said, and it's exactly the same as what 100 other faith leaders actually said. But the New York Times, the London Times, the Guardian, the everyone put the spotlight on what the Pope has said, right? And that's an interesting dynamic right then and there. And it shows you that it's not even enough to be able to get that remarkable resonance on its own. You need to make sure that all forms of media begin to pay attention to the fact that the entire number of Catholics in today's world, the entire number of Catholics is 16% of the population of people of different religions. It's 16%. The rest of that percentage of religious people is not Catholic. So the voices of the faith leaders from all of the rest of the world, 100 minus 16, is and should be equally valuable to report on, to relate to give resonance to. So we remain, as much as it's critical to understand the value and to mobilize all these religious leaders speaking together as one and acting, by the way, they deliver together. They work on projects and initiatives together. We created a multi-religious humanitarian fund thanks to these religious leaders. They wanted to ensure that we could work together, that they could work together in their communities, because they realized that with COVID, everyone was rushing to serve, no question. Every single religious institution. Remember, if they're the original service providers, they're also the original humanitarians, giving and supporting and helping everyone else. But they were each working alone. Each is rushing to work at 110%, but alone, individually, because they're massive anyway. I mean, the Catholic infrastructure is pretty darn massive anyway. But they're doing it alone. And our religious leaders said we have to continue, especially in moments of global trauma. We have to serve together. The services that need to be offered have to be done together too. So we realize that we need resonance in our everyday media and awareness that these guys matter when they're together. It matters so much. If we think what the Catholic pontiff has to say rightfully is absolutely important, imagine when it is 100 faith leaders from all over the world. Imagine. And why are we silent about that? Why is that not getting the resonance in this media, which it turns out we still need?
So, Doctor, I'm on your page, as you know, and I understand your frustration, I will call it, if you don't mind, for getting the message out. I know about Parliaments of the Religion. I know Ruderfin helping you guys. I know a lot about this stuff. Okay. And I also know about show business. And I also know about a hit show. And I know about who is going to be acceptable to media world and who is not. It's a very simple scenario. I do good news. So you're my show. You're prime time for me. You're the lead story, right? because I understand I'm not making it up for me. I want everybody to do the good news, okay? I don't want an exclusive. I don't need it like those other people need it. And I've been at CBS and I've been at PBS. I know the deal of show business, like how they get pick and select what they're going to use as their message of their medium. All right. So here's a couple thoughts to share. I appreciate your passion because I have the same exact passion. First, I hope and would support, and if you have relations there, the Pew Institute. 10 years later, we actually broke the multicultural communities, like the Asian community here in America, with our research for my company back in 1980, late 80s with St. John's University, because research is a very powerful tool. Indeed. Research is something that the advertising column of Stuart Elliott in the New York Times that started my company's success, because Stuart Elliott wrote, Asians do take the 7 train out to Flushing, Queens, and the Asians do read the World Journal. Okay. And you might see maybe 1 or 2 New York Times, but you're going to see the World Journal. So if you want to talk to the Asians, or you want to talk to my mother with the Jewish Week, or you want to talk to an Arab newspaper, blah, 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 I represented them all. And so you need to speak to those communities. The trouble is the mindset. The mindset fully isn't out there. What you can buy for one Super Bowl commercial, you could buy every ethnic media in the country for one commercial, and you could get your message in an environment. I think, it sort of almost boils down to marketing and business. Yes. I think, okay, yes. And if the more marketing related are where people can make money, I mean that is usually the biggest decision makers on where they're going to make money, because they think they make money by showing how people are getting beat up all day long, because more people will watch that. I don't agree with it. We're working hard to change that mindset and to put that, like the good things like religion and kindness and giving, as the prime time story. And those, in Yiddish we call them meshuganas, who are unfortunately unable to communicate in a nonviolent way. And they have to use violence because of all the things that we talk about here. So what do you think? How can we get to, or do we just forget about the front page of the New York Times? The United Nations will never hit the front page of the United thing. They hardly will do it even if the president goes there. Khrushchev has to bang his shoe for nuclear arms, and we're meeting through Jonathan Granoff and Dr. De Silva, because and they're nuclear people and good, loving, caring people. Okay, what are some things that we can work with you even, and to help to move it forward? Because you see, we do the International Day of Peace. So I have Central Park, okay? I have the biggest showmanship place in the world, I will say, for International Day of Peace, okay? Right. This year, all right? I've had it before. I couldn't raise the money, and Global Citizen took it from me, all right? So I make big shows. I know, I've done them. So we got to figure out how to work together to do what you do and get it into the forefront, because we need it. We need that kind of helpfulness and loving and caring and kindness. And hopefully we have learned through COVID how important our heroes are and how important our religious leaders are. And this is a golden opportunity for people like us who want to get that positive commentary out into the world. And I think it's a big winner. Listen, Christian media, singing, this stuff is big business, okay? And so we somehow have to tap into a way that the goodness from what comes from those media outreaches hits everybody, and we're all on one page. I'm trying to throw a party on September 21st at 12 noon. It's the United Nations Day, 193 countries agreed, and let's have a big day for all the religions of the world. I'm open to help.
Let's do it.
That's where we're at.
Well, I think that's a great space to be at. And we, as in Religions for Peace, we're responsible to over 100 faith leaders, each one heading their own religious institution. Yes, we have the Vatican, we have Catholics, bishops, conferences from every region of the world. We have the World Council of Churches, which is the Protestants all together, plus the Orthodox. We have every single religious institution and faith community involved. We're responsible to those people, Paul, to make sure that we can convene them regularly, for one thing, because it's important to keep to coming together. War starts when we stop speaking to one another, right? Conflicts begin when we cease to communicate with one another. This happens at the level of families. It happens at the level of social networks, communities, as well as obviously globally. So we are responsible to continuously convening these faith leaders so that there's a normal to an interfaith, multi-faith conversation and engagement together as one human body. And it seems to me that September 21st is a wonderful opportunity to bring together our faith leaders to the space that you are convening, that you are opening and making available. And yes, we would have to find the resources to bring them from all over the world, because they're all over the world. And it would also have to be a time, Paul, when COVID will allow us to do this in person, but we're now increasingly in a new normal of meetings, which is where you have the hybrid variety, right? You have this kind of a conversation, which is online, and it's going to be our new normal. We don't like it, but we have to have the hybrid. We have to try to come together when we can and continue this link so that we can include more people in this space. And COVID taught Religions for Peace, because we have this global constituency. It taught us that just because we cannot physically be together, by no means does that mean that we cannot come together. We can still come together. And all these different technological stuff that we use is enabling us. So we actually found we could reach more people.
More.
Yeah.
TikTok,
so we can do this. We can do this hybrid variety where we can bring as many people as we can afford, who are allowed and able and possible to come with all the health security well taken care of and observed, and include those who, for whatever reason, either by choice or because they simply cannot, are still joining us virtually. We can make this meeting possible, this convening possible, and it seems like a very good opportunity to do so.
So here we go. This is what we're going to do. This is part one of our conversation. Okay, we spoke for a bit here now, if this is okay with you, and we'll have a part two. So I'm going to broadcast this, okay? But I don't have billions of people coming to see it. If I throw a pie at you right now and it hits you in the face, I could double our audience, okay? You know, it worked for the Three Stooges. There's no reason it can't work for us.
We should have thought of it beforehand. I would have had a pie here. I could have put my face and said, ouch.
Well, that's part two. We're teasing the audience, you know, the few people that are watching. We have to, yeah, I'll do the pie. I got shit. Okay, I won't eat it because I'm on a diet. No. It's a tough life out there. All right, so I think we're good here. So I'm going to ask you one last question. I asked thousands of people this question. So what does peace mean to you? What is peace for you?
It's a great question. I think it just means a tranquility within oneself, a sense of not being in constant struggle with oneself, because we often think that it's the others around us who are the problem. But in fact, I think our biggest challenge to our own peace is what we feel inside ourselves and how we think within our own being. And what we see outside is actually a reflection of what's inside. So peace is an ability to be tranquil within one's own spirit.
Perfecto. Dr. Karam, Secretary General, Religions for Peace International, thank you so much for sharing the good news with us.
Reverend Paul Slater, it was lovely to talk to you.
Lovely speaking with you.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.